This Frankenstein monster head is not only a mashup of body parts, but a mashup of 4 different types of clay.
Wow!
Welcome back to Scarecrow Joe's studio. In this video, I experiment with 4 types of air dry and paper mache clays. The first 3 are store-bought pre-made clays, and the last one is a homemade clay. I apply these clays to my Frankenstein monster head, I let them dry, and then show you the final results. And at the end of the video, I share my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's get going. So here is my Frankenstein head that I started many years ago, and I intended on making this a life-size Frankenstein. For whatever reason, I can't remember, but I kind of abandoned the project. I had probably many other things going on. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to test out some DAS air dry clay. From what I understand, you can actually incorporate this air dry clay into, or on top of, or in conjunction with just regular paper mache clay. The paper mache clay that I have on this head sculpture is the Scarecrow Joe's Studio clay that we always use. If you're interested, I will link down in the bottom in the description of this video how to make this type of clay and the ingredients and the process, all that good stuff. But anyway, it's completely covered with my paper mache clay, and I just want to try this out here. Now, this is made in Italy. A lot of you out there are probably very familiar with this clay. I've used it a little bit. I haven't used it a whole lot. So this is going to be really interesting for me to try this out. And we'll see if I like Italian clay as much as I like Italian food. So I'm going to start here. I'm just going to take a little bit of this clay. It's very soft right out of the package, so I don't feel like I need to knead it or, condition it very much at all. I'll work it a little bit before I start using it, but I don't feel like it needs very much. And I think what I want to do, I'm just going to go in here and start applying. Well, and right now I do see a problem. It's not sticking to my paper mache clay. It's coming right off. So I'm going to try something. I have a little cup of water. I'm going to just dampen that area where I intend on working that DAS clay onto the surface. Let's try that again and see if it sticks. And that seems to be doing the trick. It is sticking now. So right off the bat, I know that in order for this to stick onto dry paper mache clay, you do need to moisten the surface of your sculpture that already has the clay on it to apply the DOS over that. But, after that, that works great. I'm just going to build up just a little bit. Well, I've been fooling around with the DAS clay on my paper mache sculpture here. So, just want to give you a look at that. As far as blending is concerned, you do have to apply just a little bit of water. I wouldn't go crazy with the water because I know that if you apply too much water to clays like this, in the drying process, they do have a tendency to crack a little bit. However, with this clay, reviews that I have read is that there's minimal cracking. So I think if you treat it properly, you shouldn't have to deal with a bunch of cracks in your finished piece. I've just kind of been using a variety of sculpting tools that I have on hand that I use for other types of sculpting outside of paper mache, polymer clay, sculptures, and things like that. And these work very well. Blending, I'm using this little spoon tool here. And you can press in and you can blend, you can shape, you can form, you can press in texture. So I'm really enjoying that as well. All right, folks, so I allowed this clay to cure and harden, so it's completely hard, completely dry, and, you know, I left it alone. You know, I did more buildup around the certain areas around the eyes, the mouth. But anyway, then I left it sit and harden for a couple days just to make sure. And also, you know, one of the things that I was concerned about with applying the DAS, or DOS, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but applying, I'm just going to say DAS. Applying the DAS clay over my homemade paper mache clay here, you know, the goal was to see if it would work, if it would stick, if it would crack, and there's no cracks. These areas that you see on here, that's texture that I pressed into that the DAS clay when it was wet, but I mean, there are no cracks, and it held texture very, very well. So I'm pleased with that. It was easy to work with, and it's a great product. And this is 2.2 pounds, and I got it off of Amazon for $12.96. Great product, very useful. Couple of other more clays that I want to try out. There's two more clays that I'm going to apply to this Frankenstein head here. The next one is going to be Creative Paper Clay. And those of you who are paper mache artists, you're probably very, very familiar with this pre-made clay. For the sake of this video in experimenting with different types of air dry clay, I'm going to go ahead and use this as well. This is a 1 pound package. And I bought this off of Amazon, and it cost $14.69 for 1 pound of this. So kind of expensive. And then following that, this is a product that I have not used before. This is the Fimo Airdry Clay. Fimo is probably more famous for, or more well known for, their polymer clay, and I have used their polymer clay, and it works great. But I've never tried the Fimo Airdry Clay. This is 2.2 pounds, so it's the same weight as the DAS clay. Fimo, bit more expensive at $15.36. off of Amazon. Out of the three clays here, the Creative Paper Clay is hands down the most expensive. So anyway, let's see how they work out and see how I feel about them. All right, so with the Creative Paper Clay, I'm just gonna grab a little chunk off of my block here. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm going to build up a little bit more of a brow ridge. For those of you who have never used Creative Paper Clay, I will explain a couple of things. Texture is very similar to the DAS clay, air dry clay that I used previously on this. This is a little bit more, I would say a tiny bit more fibrous, and that's really because this contains more fiber, more of a paper material in this than the DAS clay. It has paper clay in the name, so it's going to be more fibrous. Let's see if I can, first of all, get it to stick to my dry homemade paper mache clay. Now it is sticking on without me adding any kind of water to the surface area, easier than the DAS clay did. I expected that to happen, again, because this is a paper mache clay, basically. And it smooths really nice, just with my fingers. I added some more on this side here. This is going to be kind of hard to see. I'm pushing on to that clay, and I could feel like, okay, up here where I've smoothed it down into the sculpture, it's adhering to my dry paper mache clay very well. But underneath here, there's some give. So that's telling me I might end up having some problems. Not so much over here, there's no give over there. Over here there is, like I could very easily just pull that off. What I want to do, just like I did with the Das clay, I'm just going to come in here with a little bit of water. Go inside there. It just very easily pulls away. Adding that little bit of moisture in there, I think is going to help that situation. Yeah, I can already tell. If you're using this clay to bulk up over a homemade clay or any other kind of dried paper mache clay, you're going to need to add a little bit of moisture to any of your dry clay that you're going to put this over, and I think you're going to have better results. I went in, I redefined that area where I had the scarring originally in my paper mache clay, the dry clay that was on there. And I used a couple of different sculpting tools to kind of smooth things out, form things a little bit. And it looks good. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to let it dry for a couple of days. See how it looks after it dries. See if there's any noticeable cracking or anything that I don't particularly like. But the next one I'm going to move on to is the Fimo Airdry Clay. All right, yeah, very, very sticky. And even though it is sticky, in order to like smooth it, because I tried using just straight on the clay a little ball stylist, and it does not like pressure. Just kind of tears up the clay a little bit. Could be me, I mean, I don't know. So yeah, I don't know about this clay. This is the one that I'm just like, I'm very curious about. But right now, I'm not even sure I like it. So I could be just wasting my time. But it's good learning. I'm not going to do very much sculpting or refining on this ear, just because I have a feeling that this clay is going to crack a lot. And I don't want to waste my time putting a lot of effort into the ear right now. All right, but there we have it for now. We have Das Airdry Clay, Creative Paper Clay, and then the Fimo Airdry Clay. I'm going to let the Creative Paper Clay dry and cure for a couple days. Do the same with the Airdry Fimo Clay. Come back to it. Take a look at it, do a comparison on the three clays, and then we're going to make our own homemade paper mache clay. All right, so it's been 24 hours since I applied the Creative Paper Clay to the forehead area and the Air Dry Fimo Clay to this ear. And just looking at it, no cracks in the Creative Paper Clay, and I was not expecting them, so that turned out great. Great product, little on the pricey side in my opinion. Fimo here, after 24 hours there is some cracks up here and some cracks in the clay down here. And in the last clip I didn't show you what the Fimo clay looked like. So this is what it looks like. This is an earth clay. It's basically what it is. It's so according to the package, it's 95% natural ingredients. I don't know what the other 5% is because there's no real information on the package itself. But I've sculpted and made things out of earth clays, earth air dry clays. And this is very much the same thing. It's easy to work with for sure. I'm going to see here in these cracks, I'm just going to take a little bit of the clay and I just want to smooth over those cracks. You know, in this piece here, my Frankenstein monster head, cracks isn't going to, you know, really affect the end result, just because he is a mishmash of different body parts. So, but if you are wanting to do something and you need it very, very smooth, cracking is not going to be your friend. So, again, I'm going to take a little bit of the water on my fingers and just smooth it in. And we'll see what it looks like after another 24 hours. But while we're waiting for that, let's make another air dry clay. Not the Scarecrow Joe Studio clay, but this clay is on a YouTube channel called Ultimate Paper Mache. A lady named Johnny. She's been around for a very long time, and she has a few different paper clay recipes on her channel. There's one specifically that I want to try, so let's go ahead and make that clay. Okay, before I get started on making this particular type of air dry clay, and Johnny from Ultimate Paper Mache, she calls it super smooth air dry clay. Ingredients: you're going to need drywall joint compound, all-purpose white glue. I'm using Elmer's glue all. If you can't find Elmer's, Titebond makes an all-purpose white glue. Basically, you need a glue that's a PVA glue. So make sure that's a PVA glue. I know that Elmer's glue all is a PVA glue. Titebond All Purpose white glue is a PVA glue. You can get those on Amazon. I was running low on my Elmer's here. And for some reason on Amazon, they're selling the same size, this is a gallon, for almost $35, which is just crazy to me. So I opted to go with Titebond, which is pretty much the same thing, all-purpose PVA white glue, and it was 20 bucks. So on Amazon. So anyway, PVA white glue, just get the cheaper one. And then drywall joint compound. You can pretty much find this anywhere in the United States. If you are outside of the United States, guys, I just don't know. But one of the ingredients is pre-made drywall joint compound. And if you're not familiar with it, you can get it in the hardware sections. And this is what it looks like. It's pre-made. It's not the powder. It's already mixed up for you. Comes in a bunch of different sizes. I use quite a bit of it in making the Scarecrow Joe Studio clay that I usually make, and I use this as well. I get the cheap stuff. The only thing that you don't want to get, brand name, is DAP, D-A-P. Don't get that because I don't know what's in it, but it will turn your clay into a rubbery kind of substance, and it doesn't stick well, and it's kind of a mess. So don't use DAP brand drywall joint compound. Pretty much I think anything else will work. And again, I get the cheap stuff. There are a few other ingredients besides the glue and the joint compound, and I have pre-measured everything out into these plastic cups here just to make it easier on myself and easier to explain. So this is the half a cup for this recipe, half a cup of the joint compound, which I have it pre-measured out. I have a little line here indicating that that's where the half cup mark is. I put a little bit extra because this is not a liquid, and I know that I'm going to have to scrape most of it out. I'm not going to be able to get all of it out of there. So I filled this little cup a little bit more than a half a cup. And then you'll need a half a cup of flour. Other ingredient here that, and Johnny lists this particular ingredient as optional. So you probably don't need it, but I'm going to use it. And it's mineral oil. Any baby oil is basically pure mineral oil. And the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons. So this is 3 tablespoons pre-measured out of the mineral oil or baby oil. Again, in the recipe, she indicates that this ingredient is optional. Last ingredient is cornstarch. So here I have measured out a half cup of cornstarch. Now I will put a list of the ingredients and the measurements on the screen, and as well in the description of this video. In this cup here, I just have a little extra all-purpose flour. So white flour is what you'll need. You don't need any fancy flour, just cheap white flour. I put some extra in there because in the instructions it says that you may need an additional, after you mix everything up, you may need an additional amount of flour, up to maybe 3/4 of a cup. So I have the extra flour here if I need it. And last but not least, you're going to need toilet paper. The recipe for this air dry clay calls for a half a cup of damp toilet paper. So I have here in this this plastic bowl some toilet paper that I put in there. This is going to be way more than I need, so maybe I'll make a couple of batches of this clay. I don't know. But I've had this soaking in here for, I don't know, a couple hours, just so I make sure that it's nice and thoroughly saturated, and I can, as you can see, it just pulls apart really well. So I think that's it. That covers all the ingredients, and let's get down to actually making it. As far as tools are concerned, you're going to want a hand mixer. This is what mine looks like. That's all dried paper mache clay on there because I don't clean things like I should. But anyway, this is also why I have a dedicated hand mixer just to make my paper mache clay. I also have dedicated bowls and cups and different things like that that I use only for paper mache clay. I suggest you do the same thing if you're planning on making a lot of it, and you know, you don't want to use the same bowls, mixer, paddles, and that kind of thing up in your kitchen to make food that you're using to mix like drywall joint compound and that kind of stuff. All right, let's get started. I need to get my half a cup of damp toilet paper. So you don't want to just pick this up, throw it in, and make a, you know, measure it out to a half a cup. It needs to be damp. So just squeeze out some of it. You don't want to squeeze out all of it. Those are the instructions on what Johnny says. And just get enough. You don't want to squeeze it out so all the water's gone, but you don't want it like completely saturated. She is very, very precise, by the way, more precise than I am probably on measurements. She has a actual scale where she can measure out grams of things. I don't, and you know, I'm just not going to go out and buy one for this. So I think that's probably, if I pack that down, that's about a half a cup. So now I know I have that half a cup. I'm going to set the rest of this aside, bring this over. And then with the toilet paper, I'm just going to take bits and kind of separate them so that it's a little easier to mix instead of just throwing a glob of it in there like that and having your little hand mixer work harder than it needs to. So I'm going to unclump all of that, get it in the bowl. All right, that's all broken up into smaller pieces, and I'm going to go in with the rest of the ingredients. So half a cup of cornstarch, half a cup of flour, my half a cup of glue, half a cup of drywall joint compound, and I'm just using a paint stir stick. Last ingredient is the 3 tablespoons of the baby oil or mineral oil. And I'm ready to start mixing. All right, let's look at the consistency of this. This is very, very sticky and not workable. So what I need to do is add more flour. And I'm just going to add a little bit of flour at a time. Still very sticky. In her original recipe for the Silky Smooth Airdry Clay that I'm attempting to recreate or make, she says that you could also, when you're kneading it, you can add more of the cornstarch. Okay, I feel like it's starting to come together as a workable clay. It's still very, very sticky. All right, I think we're getting there. Maybe. This is still very, very sticky, but not as sticky as it was. I'm gonna go in with more flour. All right, getting there. Reminds me of pizza dough. When I was very, very young, I worked in a pizza restaurant, making pizza dough, and this is what it reminds me of. All right. All right. I think I did okay making it. It's still sticky, but not as sticky as it was. I think that this is how it's supposed to look. So, a little sticky. But man, just kind of taking a piece of that and kneading it and working with it, I could tell this is a good clay. This is a good air dry clay. So, what I'm going to do now is get cleaned up. I'm going to transfer this into a Ziploc bag so that it doesn't dry out. I'm going to get cleaned up, and then we're going to apply some of this to my Frankenstein monster head. Let's try some of this homemade Silky Smooth Air Dry Clay. Just going to tear off some of it. And I don't know, like the other clays that I used, if it's going to stick directly onto my dry paper mache clay. And it looks like it is, without applying any more water to the surface of my dry clay that's on there. Yeah, I don't feel the need to add water to the surface area of this dry clay. When you go to the Ultimate Paper Mache YouTube channel, find this tutorial that she has on making this clay. I'm sure that she is going to explain it a lot better than I just did. It is her recipe. It's built off of her original recipe for her paper mache air dry clay that she also has. So for this variation though, Silky Smooth Paper Mache Clay, She does say that this is not meant to be applied over, an armature in a thick amount. This Silky Smooth Airdry Clay here is meant to be put on or applied thinly. So if you need something to bulk up a little bit of areas that you already have bulked up and you want to put in some details, this is probably a good clay. And I'm just using the end of a little ball stylus sculpting tool here just to kind of smooth it in to my dry clay. I'm just I want to see how it holds texture, so I'm kind of just another plastic sculpting tool here. So far I'm liking it. You can press in texture. It is pretty smooth. I'm going to just put a little bit of water around the edge. Just add a little bit of water around my edges here, because even though it sticks better than any of the other clays that I've tried and applied onto this head, I feel like the edges where that wet clay meets my dry clay can use a little help just so it'll stick. So yeah, I mean, you can apply a little water and that'll help you smooth things, just like with the other clays. You can use sculpting tools that are normally used for creating sculptures out of polymer clay and oil-based clays, things like that. So, yeah, I like it. It's probably as good or maybe even better than some of these other clays that are on here. I'm gonna let it dry for 24 hours, come back to it, see if there's any cracking, anything like that, and then I'll do my follow-up with my final thoughts. So on the homemade paper mache clay, which is Ultimate Paper Mache's recipe for Silky Smooth Airdry Clay, I applied to this ear here. It's been 24 hours. It has dried completely. It's very hard and no cracks. And it is very, very smooth, silky smooth. Final thoughts on all of these clays. Das Air Dry Clay, in my opinion, is a winner. It works beautifully. You can apply it over paper mache sculptures in conjunction with paper mache clay to build up some more details, smooth things out and surfaces that you want to have that effect. And the price point is right. Creative Paper Clay, my opinion, another winner. It worked beautifully, no visible cracks after it dried. It was easy to apply. You just need to wet your paper mache clay surface, if that's what you're working on, to apply it over that so that it will stick and adhere. The only downfall is that for a pound, just 1 pound of this, in my opinion, is a little expensive in comparison to getting 2 pounds of the Das clay and 2 pounds of Fimo clay, which I'll get into in a minute. So really, that's the only downfall. But I find it to be a very, very useful and effective product that you could easily incorporate into a paper mache sculpture that already has paper mache clay on it. Fimo Airdry Clay, on the other hand, although I think it is effective in certain applications, but it was a little difficult to work with and it did crack, not significantly, but it did crack. And after filling some of the visible cracks after 24 hours of drying, I went back and looked at that, and where I filled in those cracks, they didn't reappear, so that's pretty awesome. However, more cracks appeared, small minute ones around the base of the ear here. So again, it's useful. It does have its uses in my opinion, and 2 pounds for a little over $15. You know, if you don't have the ability to make your own clay or you want to try something else out, yeah, give it a try, give it a shot. It's okay, it's an okay product. I wouldn't say that it's my favorite though. The last clay is Ultimate Paper Mache's recipe for Silky Smooth Airdry Clay that we made. And actually, I'm going to tell you something, I love this clay. No cracking, easy to apply, little bit sticky, but that's probably something that I did. Maybe I could have used and put in a little bit more flour. I was afraid of getting it too dry. I would rather have it a little sticky than too dry. So, you know, you can add a little bit more flour, get it to the consistency that's workable for you and that you like to apply. But it's awesome, and it's very cost effective because you can make a lot of this stuff very cheaply. So those are my final thoughts on all of these 4 clays. There are many, many other clays out there that you could get. You know, go on Amazon if you want to purchase a pre-made air dry clay, or if you want to purchase a paper mache clay that you just need to add water to. There's a ton of that stuff out there. Check all that stuff out. A lot of it is sold on Amazon. Find a product that works for you, experiment, and go from there. That sums up my feelings and thoughts on using these products and how well I like them and what I don't like about them. All of these different clays that are store-bought, and links to websites, links to materials, links to products, tools that I use are going to be in the description of this video. So if you're interested, click on those, check them out, especially Ultimate Paper Mache YouTube channel and the website. Johnny's great. Give her some love. Go there, check it out. She makes a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of animals, cute things. I don't make a lot of cute things. Just not my thing. But she does. So if you're into that, check her out for sure. My next tutorial coming up is going to be a multi-segment tutorial on how to make a 3D Stranger Things Season 5 Vecna wall sculpture. So stay tuned for that within the next couple of weeks. That'll be coming out. And until then, I thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.